Welcome back to Fear and Beer, a Halloween Horror Nights podcast. Join us as we venture year-round into the fog.
Make sure you give us a like and a follow on your podcast platform of choice. Also, be sure to check out our YouTube page where we upload every episode in its video format, and maybe a few other surprises as well.
Make sure you're following us on social media to keep up to date with our newest haunted content.
I'm Nick.
I'm Seamus.
I'm Jamie.
He's a menace to the entire city. I want that wall-crawling arachnid prosecuted. I want him strung up by his web. I want Spider-Man!
Well, Spider-Man's not coming to Horror Nights, but we got a
Don't
whole...
come after us, Disney.
we got a whole... that was before. That was Sony. That's somebody else's problem now. But we got a whole list of wants. And, well, they're probably not going to happen, but we're going to give them anyways. So we decided to bring on a little extra want, because we've been wanting to do this collab for a while, and that is with Xandra from Xandra Ventures. So, Xandra, welcome to the Fear and Beer pod.
Thank you so much. I'm so psyched to be here. I've been a listener since 2021, and it was really great last year finally getting to meet you guys and getting to know you. So to be a guest host on the show is really exciting.
What a fun, weird little, like, first/second introduction me and you had, because we sort of crossed paths prior unknowingly, and then it was kind of going back to the Spider-Man. It was kind of like the Spider-Man meme, where it's like, you, me, that's you. Yep, I know who you are. But so why don't you take a minute real quick? Feel free to give everybody your handles, whatever you have for your Instagram and your TikTok. I believe it's just Xandra.ventures for Instagram. But what are the people going to find on your page?
Sure. So yeah, I'm Xandra.ventures on Instagram. Right now, I'm just primarily using Instagram, but this year I'm probably gonna venture out into other social media platforms. I cover the theme parks, mostly Universal, because that's where I love to be. I especially go hard for HHN. No surprise there. It's like my favorite theme park event of all time. But I do branch off to Disney, SeaWorld, and other things around Orlando. So I generally just cover new happenings and things that I like and that I find interesting. This year, I'm going to be at HHN literally as much as possible because I am leaving back to Florida in 3 days. So,
Yay!
Oh yeah, hell yeah! You
gonna
can
be a
probably
good
listen to
year.
this episode on your drive down.
I will.
So we did see recently you were in town and you got invited to do what looked like to be epic food preview for select content creators. So how'd that go? What am I looking forward to when we get into the parks?
Yeah, that was such a cool opportunity. I never expected it. I saw the message come from Universal on Instagram, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, "Wait a minute, I'm invited to something." Uh, it was a huge surprise. I booked a flight that day. I didn't plan on coming to Orlando one more time before I moved, but I could not pass this up. And they had us come in and try foods from every land around Epic Universe. We weren't allowed to bring in any phones or recording devices. So it was top secret, but they did provide us with photos the next day that everyone posted. However, we did try something that was not in the press release and that there is no photos of anywhere. So, and it's from Dark Universe. So,
Ooh,
yeah,
How
so
exciting.
intriguing.
it was really good too. But I'll tell you a little bit about that. I'll focus on Epic Universe for the spooky vibes. I mean, I'm sorry, Dark Universe. But from Dark Universe, we tried a beverage and a entree. The beverage that we tried is the secret thing that wasn't on the press release. It's called the Monocane Mocktail, and it was this non-alcoholic elixir that gives the invisible man his invisibility. It had this really cool teal turquoise color and edible glitter in it that kind of swirled around. So it was this cool glowing iridescent drink. It looked kind of like a Baja Blast, and it also kind of tasted like one, but in a good way, like an elevated Baja Blast.
Oh, I'm in.
We love a Baja Blast around here.
I
Baja
liked it a lot.
Blasters. Nice. I was really hoping you were going to say the secret food item was the summer camp dog, because I still need to have a couple more dozens of
I don't
those
know.
before I get put in the grave.
You could save that for your wish list.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add that. The summer camp dog coming back,
I don't know if we'll
please,
ever
with
see that
more
one make a comeback, but
more summer camp dog 2, more summer. But yeah, so cool. I'm excited regardless, obviously, but the fact that you insinuated we have a Baja Blast style drink, now you're gonna have to pry me out of there.
And Invisible Man theme. That's so fun. I can't
yeah,
wait to see
and it's
everything.
apparently we got it just served in like these regular plastic cups, but it's actually like the beverage director told us it's served in this I have it on my note, an Erlenmeyer flask. So it's like those scientist flasks that kind of have that like triangular shape. It's like a beaker.
That's so
And it's going
cool.
to be a cork at the top with a straw. And the director told us that like when the liquid goes through, it has that like iridescence really shows off in the straw. Um, I don't know what that means, but it sounds cool. And it kind of had like a lemon lime base with pineapple and like some tropical fruit flavors. It was effervescent. It was really good. I loved it. I kind of low key hope they have like a alcoholic version of it as well or something similar. But I think it's great that they're doing like designated or dedicated non-alcoholic drinks for the lands. So yeah, the drink was really cool and it seems to be highly themed. So no complaints here.
Nice. Well, I'm excited. So with the before I guess we get into the wish list, you said you came prepared. You have a special beverage that you're going to be sipping on. I did say last week I'm kind of taking a little bit of a timeout, and I'm
I
upholding
know.
that.
Now I
I'm
feel
two
bad.
weeks in. I'm 2 weeks in, and I haven't caved yet. So Xandra, I'm just going to have you take my position of drinking. What are you working with over there?
I'm happy to do so. I today very like meticulously chose this beer. It's called the Planetary Bombardment. It is a sour ale with strawberry, raspberry, and pink guava. I chose it
Ooh.
because it's kind of like space themed, and that directly ties into one of the main things on my wish list. It also kind of has that like universe celestial theme, so kind of tied it into Epic Universe too as well. It's by Urban Family Brewing Co., which is this like microbrewery in Seattle, Washington. I'm not sure how it found its way to Colorado, but I'm happy it did. And it's 6%, so it should be good. Let's crack it open.
You
That
are
was
a long time
great.
listener. Look at
I
that.
know. I was going to
I'm
say, that
leaving.
sounded
See you
just like
guys.
Nick's spiel. That was great.
I've heard it so many times, it was easy to like mold the style. I'm gonna pour
For
it.
anyone that says they're a long time listener, you're going to have to prove it with a beer intro just like Xandra. Because if you don't, I'm not buying it.
That sounds good, though, too. Pink guava.
I
And
am
you
a
know,
sucker for anything with guava. It's like one of my favorite
Mm-hmm.
flavors to find. And I'm a huge fan of sours. It has a really nice color to it, kind of a rosy tint. Let's try it.
And the little glass. Love it.
Oh, that's so good. Wow, yeah. That's like right up my alley.
yeah,
I would
we're big
say it's
sour fans.
Mm-hmm.
sour fans.
Love me a sour.
I'd say it's like very well balanced. It's not too sweet or too tart. Um, it has a good like fizziness to it. It's very fruit forward, and you definitely taste that guava come through. It's not like overpowered by the strawberry, and it's very crushable. So I'm sure this will go down.
Nice.
Perfect. Seamus, did you have something, or is the cat just interested in your other drink?
He's just wondering what's going on.
Okay, he's in a staring
They
contest.
they know the moment I get stuff set up, they're like, oh, let's just go hound the shit out of him now.
Time to fuck shit up.
I was drinking a Coors Light, but
Okay, all
that's
right.
just how I do.
All reliable, never fails. All right. Well, I know I don't have a drink, Jamie. I don't believe you have one.
I didn't grab one. I should have. I thought
Oh,
about grabbing
okay.
a high noon from the fridge, but I did not.
A little.
I'm drinking
meaner.
that high
That's
quality
okay.
Florida agua.
That's what I saw. I was like, oh, I don't know what else is in it. Maybe a Baja Blast. I
In
don't
the
know.
cup.
But either way, let's get down to the meat and potatoes of this episode. We haven't done this. I thought we had done it last year, but I guess we didn't. The last time I think we did it was we did like a HHN32 wish list back the June before that event, and I figured we would have done this last year, and we hadn't. And I thought that this was a perfect time because it feels like we're on the cusp of like rumors or announcements. Like we're getting pretty close, I'd say. We're definitely due for a new Horror Nights Nightmares speculation map at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But in the time being, let's throw out a couple kind of wish list items. These can be anything from a certain IP to a scare zone to some little aspect of the event that you either miss or you want to see return that we got in the last couple of years, and would overall just make this event like the ultimate HHN for you. And I got a handful of them, and then we asked on Instagram what your one like top wish list item would be, and we'll run through a handful of those towards the end, so that way it doesn't kind of seem like I'm stealing everybody else's good ideas, because a lot of them lined up with stuff I had going on. So we'll kind of just round table this one at a time, give one wish list item, we'll discuss and see if maybe people are listening. Maybe we'll get some cool stuff brought back to HHN. I doubt it, but you never know.
Yeah, you never know.
So does anybody in particular want to kick this off?
I mean, I've got one that we kind of talked about. I forget what episode it was we talked about this on, but someone had called us and mentioned that, or had asked if we'd known, like, were they going to have any specific types of beer for the event. And we talked about how, like, you know, typically they only really bring in like Lactic Cooler, and I think last year they had there was 3 other ones you could get, but I forget what brewery they came from. But they don't really typically ever do just like a craft beer thing. Like, there's no bar, there's no station, there's nothing where they focus solely on the craft beer world. And I think that being Fear and Beer, it's something that we desperately want.
Yep.
So I think for one of my big wish lists is for them to finally put in some sort of like craft beer, either necessarily a bar, but at least a station somewhere in amongst the park that focuses solely on selling local craft beer from various places in Florida. And it can be like what they do with the Blood Orange IPA from Crooked Can, where they just take a standard beer that they typically sell and then rebrand it for the event. That's fine, but they need to at least give people more options. I think that's something that a lot of people have been asking for. I mean, like I said, we got a random call question about that from somebody who, you know, I think is probably a regular listener, but like the fact that people in the audience, people in the community have been asking for things like this is something that not just something we're looking for. I think a lot of people will be looking for it, because not everybody is a mixed drink person. Like I've never really been a huge mixed drink drinker, but I mean, I'll do a few things here and there, but like I never get super excited about the different drinks that they offer every season. And obviously sometimes with good reason, because I don't know about you, I know that Nick did not like the light bulb drink that they had last year.
Terrible.
Oh my god,
it was Robitussin.
So
not good.
I mean, I think that they need to branch out and maybe offer some additional options when it comes to at least alcoholic beverages, and maybe branch out a little bit more in the beer world. I think there's just so many options now available. And I think a lot of local breweries would jump at the chance if they were given the opportunity to, like, hey, come up with something for HHN. We want to provide it, you know, solely at this event. We talked about how SeaWorld typically does that. Like, they'll have specifics come in for their Halloween event. So the fact that Horror Nights doesn't do it, Universal doesn't do it, is just more surprising to me than anything. So that's one of my number one item, or not, maybe not my number one item, but one of my top items, I think, for this year.
Yeah. A couple things on that too. I'm curious if they were sort of testing the waters last year with the triplets booth, because they did have the Three Daughters.
Yeah, Three Daughters. That's what it was. Yeah.
My other thing was, I'm curious if they don't maybe have faith in some local brews to kind of keep up with the production that they're going to go through all that.
I guess so. I mean, my thought would be like, tell them, work with them early enough in the year. They can brew, you know, they can pull out a few dozen barrels in, you know, in the time it takes to do it. And like I said, it could be something that they already make. Correct. So they don't necessarily have to do that. And there's ways to make it work. It's just they actually have to maybe, you know, reach out and do that. And again, it just has to be enough to cover the event. It wouldn't be something they would carry permanently. I'm just getting tired of Lactic Cooler. Like, I like it, but at the same time, like, I need variety in my life, and I can't
only fight heartburn for so much.
Yeah, and that's just it too. Like, we talked about how, you know, we all love sours, but like, even for me, it's like,
Ooh,
After a couple sours, I start to feel it. I'm
you're
like,
feeling it.
yeah.
Mhm.
So
But yeah, I like that. I think too, like if they are nervous about production, like split it up. Like you just do
right.
3 weeks or two. You get 2 weeks. Like just produce us enough beers for 2 weeks, and then next week we're gonna do some other brewery or whatever. That's a lot more moving
Yeah,
pieces than they
yeah,
normally do, but I think it would keep it fresh.
Yeah.
yeah. That would be cool.
Jamie, you got an item that you want to toss out?
I do have one that kind of goes along with that. One of my wish list items is I wish and I hope that they'll bring back the original Sin Cider next year or this year. Oh my gosh. This year, because in the previous years, they've had the original Sin in a couple different flavors. But last year, they only had it like one or two nights. I could find it across from Louis at like a random pop up cart in front of like the Haagen-Dazs and the Starbucks right there. So I don't know why they stopped bringing it, but I feel like that was a really good cider option too. Because, like you said, Seamus, as much as I do like the mixed drinks and trying the different ones, sometimes it's nice to just have like a couple beers during the night. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember when we found out that there was one there. I think I was doing a photo shoot. Um, I forget what I
Someone
forget
had
what
told
the
it had to have
event
been you
was,
that
but
told me. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and they were like, "Yeah, it's over there." And I was like, "What?" It hasn't been. It was like last year when I found out
Yeah,
from Angel that the salt and vinegar twisted taters were
Right.
actually
It's like
they could
finding out
actually
that
do them. It just wasn't on the menu.
you've been
it's like
hiding
their in and out menu.
Yeah, I've been
from
fucking bamboozled the whole year. But yeah,
me.
so it seems like we're going through more drink and bar related stuff. So I'll
Mhm,
toss out. I had two, but they kind of like tie into each other.
mhm.
One being bring back the HHN bar. I thought that was a
Yeah.
really fun experience. That was really the first time I believe that I remember seeing characters from houses displayed out in the actual world of HHN. So that was really fun. So I
It
hope
was
they do
cool.
that. But what I want to tie it into also is utilizing that Fanta slash Peacock bar more because there was a steady drop off. And it's nice having like sort of a dead space, but the crowd difference between Peacock Bar and Fanta Bar this year was very noticeable. So
Mhm,
even if you sort of merge the two and have like HHN Bar, but have this bar also have characters out kind of roaming around, kind of how
mhm,
David S. Pumpkins was, I think that would be a fun experience because as much as people didn't, I love David S. Pumpkins. That's one of my favorite skits of all time. So seeing him out and about was great, but I think it would be fun to have other characters from houses sort of off the stage and walking around and stuff like that. So bring back HHN bar, but also maybe do two of them and one being where that Peacock bar area is.
I mean, kind of
So that's
feeding off of that, it would be nice if they combined that San Francisco scare zone and use that kind of exit to Fast and the Furious and put something back there that's involved with the scare zone. Does that make sense?
mhm.
So
Like
like
yeah,
opens that up a little bit. Like think about when they did
Conjure,
no,
Conjure
not
the
even
Dark.
Conjure, when they did oh my god, Rob Zombie, when they had
Oh,
his scare
Hellbilly.
zone
Oh, mhm,
and you have something along those lines, like I feel like having something in that little area behind there would have been a nice way to like a nice touch to add to that scare zone. Now, are they worried about log jams? I feel like that scare zone creates a log jam no matter what you put there anyways. So I
Yeah,
don't think it makes a big difference. And plus that other just traditional food booth is open over there, I think, in San Francisco, even
yeah.
during the event. So it's like, why not just put something more themed in the scare zone itself? But
hmm No, I agree with that as well. And it's a little bit trickier now that they have that house exit there, but it's still
oh, well,
doable.
right. But there's enough space to the side that you could stick something off to the side.
Yeah, you can make something happen. So, Xandra, what's one item you got on your wish list for 34?
So I might as well throw this one out here because it was almost exactly the same as what Seamus just said, and pretty much everyone just said, so I'll just start with this one. I also would love to see a bigger local craft selection at HHN. Pretty much exactly what Seamus was saying. I also am more of a beer person. I don't really go for the cocktails anymore. Like I'll try one or two of them, but I find they typically kind of fall short of expectations, so I go with beer instead. And beer's cheaper. So I would love to see them kind of redesign the bar behind, like where the Peacock bar was behind Lombard's, into like a Halloween themed beer garden And I mean, just throw up some like orange lights and some jack-o'-lanterns and have like a selection of craft beers, collaborate with local breweries. I know a lot of them have like great seasonal Halloween beers that I would love to see in the park. Call it like Brew Hollow or something. Like people would love that. So in Orlando has a pretty good craft beer scene now. So I would love to see more overlap between HHN and local breweries for sure. And I
Yeah,
think
there's a
last year
lot.
they one of the beers they had as like their 4 signature drafts was Bud Light. I'm like, come on, guys.
Come on.
Can do better
Yep.
than this.
Switch it
Yeah.
up a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if SeaWorld can do it, you can do it. Like
exactly.
that's my thought on
SeaWorld is
that.
slept on when it comes to their beers, but that's a song for another time.
The light beer
Yeah.
lobby's got their grips on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not even good light beer. It's like if you're just gonna offer all that cheap like shit, like at least offer something good like Coors Light. Just saying.
Yeah,
But it's
Coors
like
Light.
Miller Light, which is gross, and you said there's Bud Light in a few places, but that's meh.
Yeah.
They don't even really do Angry Orchard anymore, and I'm like,
No,
that's
and they
got
don't.
nothing for me
Well,
now.
because like you mentioned the cider, Jamie, and they don't really do a decent cider.
Not too many.
Like, and you would think that they would at least have one or two local ciders. Like, there's enough places that do their own like cideries and things like that, or even offer like some sort of mead option. Like meaderies are a big thing now too, which isn't obviously it's
or
not
a
beer,
sour
but it's
too. We don't really see too many sours.
We never see sours. Yeah,
No.
I would
Yeah.
love to see that.
Yeah.
They dropped the ball of not having mead last year at the Torture Fair.
With the,
Right.
yeah, that's true.
Or even Goblin's Feast. I mean,
Or
that would have
for
been a good place
goblins,
to have some sort of mead to go with it.
Goblin's Yeast.
There you go.
Seamus, you got another little wish list item?
I mean, this is kind of jumping all over the place, but I've got a house idea that I want, and it's pretty simple.
Let's hear
I
it.
want Graveyard Games 2.
Ooh.
Okay.
Or I want Games: The Return of the Graveyard, or Graveyard: Return of the Games. I don't care what it is, but give me something in that particular
Damn it, Seamus.
that world. Sorry, I steal something from you
Xandra,
again. Yeah,
Xandra, you look hyped up.
That's 2 for 2.
So I'll let you both just tag team this one then.
Yeah, so please explain why, because I love that house, and that's all I need to tell people.
Graveyard Games is my favorite house of all time. I've been going since 2011, and it's still my favorite. I would love to see a sequel. That's on my wish list. Is Graveyard Games sequel. They did a Slaughter Cinema sequel last year. They do sequels all the time, so I feel like Graveyard Games is kind of overdue. It was a fan favorite. It was really well received, and it was super scary and beautiful. So I would just love to see another rendition of that. I will be like the first person lined up on opening night to do that house.
Just let me in. Let me in.
Let
Yeah,
me-
it's that was an all timer, that's for sure. And I remember like the one thing I like about that is I don't want to say it was the last one to do it, but it's the last one that like first comes to mind that has used that outside video to like bring you into the story before you're there. Obviously, Slaughter Cinema does the advertisements for the fake movies and stuff like that to get you into the spirit, but this one had full on video, and like I think it showed like the Facebook Messenger like text thread of like kind of bringing you into the story. And that's that I might as well give into one of mine, because one of my wish list items is to return queue line videos for houses, because I think
I
that's
had that too.
you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're just the Fear and Beer guys are just stealing all them.
We know
all the
what
ideas.
we like.
But yeah, I think that enhances the experience tenfold when you go into the house and you fully understand what it is without spoiling it. Because a lot of times, especially, a lot of people aren't like the 4 or 3 or 4 of us. Yeah, there's 4
of us. There's 4. There's 4 tonight.
They're not like the 4 of us where we go so often we can just run through houses, repeat, pick up on stuff we didn't find before. This would help so many people understand what they're walking into. I mean, you look at any houses, like whether it's Dead Man's or Blood Moon or even Graveyard Games, if you didn't have that little thread or video beforehand, that first run through, you might be a little lost, and it would take a little bit to sort of like pick everything up.
I mean, if not, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, and
I didn't want to cut you off.
They're so easy to do, right? Like just film a little something and put it up on the screen.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if not video, audio, because there have been times like they did a Monsters House. I think
Monsters.
Was it the first Monsters House or was it the second one?
I think it
Was
was
it Collide
Collide.
that they did like an audio recording beforehand? Um, Even something like that, just to kind of lay some of the groundwork. Because we've talked about it in the past, where some of these houses, like the stories are so convoluted and out there, it's really hard to tell the story from just the house itself. So having something to at least set it up and set up the lore, so you have something in mind as you're going in, I think would help. Because even if you think about like when we went into the Dragon's House or even Insidious last year, you have those hanging murals in that one location, and it kind of gives you at least a little bit of a step by step as to what was going on to lead up to wherever you're at when you enter the house. I think that helps too. So I think a lot of those different ways of telling the story, or at least initiating some of the story, would is good, and they should do something like that more often, especially for the houses with really really tough to understand stories.
Well, it's like I think the reception on something like Triplets of Terror last year would have been way higher if you had that little
Right.
intro going into it.
Yeah, and it felt like with that one specifically, it felt like they were trying to do that, but like I said, that's part of the reason why I didn't like it is because they kind of just like completely forgot about that after that first initial room with
Mhm.
like the podcast thing. I'm like, oh, okay, so I kind of see where they're gonna go with this, and then it had nothing to do with it after that.
I mean, the last thing I need to see is fucking 47 trailers for Megan 2 this year.
Oh, I know.
That's
Well,
gonna be
that and then, you know
blasphemy.
what? I think part of this, I think at least for me, now that you bring it up, comes from the fact that whenever they do any video, it's just trailers for Universal movies,
And it
and
never
it's
used to be
super
like
loud
that.
too.
Mhm.
It is.
Just like advertisements on the side of your building, and it's like that's fine, but it doesn't
Mix it up.
really. It kind of takes me out of it, like because and everywhere they have a camera, projector, like either behind where Slaughter was last year, or where Monsters, not much of where's where Monsters and Goblins was, in that area, and then over by where the sound stages are, like wherever there's a projector set up, it's the same thing, just over really loud trailers that are ear bleedingly loud when you're standing next to the speaker. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
So,
I feel like
Jamie, Jamie, what were your thoughts on the video projections?
So,
What do you
kind of
have?
piggybacking off of what Seamus said with the trailers and stuff like that, they never really used to play like movie trailers and stuff. It would always be for the original houses. You'd kind of get those like intro videos. Like one of my favorites was HR Blood and Guts when they had it and they were going through each holiday and they would torture the guy on set and stuff like that. And I feel like it just kind of really like immersed you before you even went into the house and kind of got you more hyped up for it. And I feel like in the previous last couple years they had kind of stopped doing the video stuff altogether and started bringing it back a little bit more now with like the trailers and stuff that they're doing. So I hope that means that maybe they'll go back to doing these videos because it kind of kills time too when you're going in before the houses and gives you something to look at, except for that. I mean, it's still going to be the same thing repeated, but I
Yeah.
could only stay on my phone or talk to my friends for so long with getting antsy headlines. So I do like having that to get me excited for the house.
Yeah, I think it does add that layer, and like Seamus said, they have these set up in so many different queue lines already.
Mhm.
You have the area, you have the technology. You just need to put a different video on there. It's not that hard.
And it kind of goes back to when they used to do the websites more detailed when they would put like the descriptions of the houses and you could kind of like look through everything and that was really fun. And so I feel like now you wouldn't really get the full idea of a house unless you're doing like the behind the scenes tour like we do and stuff like that. So I feel like that would kind of give people a little more insight as well who might not know the backstory or the lore regarding the house.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, we sort of bounced around a little bit, stealing different things here and there. So, Xandra, why don't you head over to one of your next items?
Okay. The next item on my wish list is I would love to see a traditional Halloween themed house or scare zone, preferably a scare zone. They've done this really well in the past a few times. Trick or Treat as a scare zone in a house was some of my favorite Halloween vibes of all time. The Wicked Growth, Sweet Revenge. Like it seemed like for a while they had a dedicated like traditional Halloween house or zone every year, and then they kind of neglected that the past couple years. Like I think last year the only pumpkin or jack-o'-lantern I saw was on the Nightmare Fuel stage.
Hmm.
So I would really love to see a scare zone with like the orange lights, fall leaves, glowing jack-o'-lanterns. Especially Scare Zone because I like to hang out in those, grab a drink, and just kind of bask in the Halloween ambience. It's not just a horror event, it's in the name, it's also a Halloween event. So I want to see more Halloween representation. And if they bring those floating jack-o'-lanterns in the trees in Central Park, like the ones that are in, that tunnel of trees, that would just make my entire year.
Yeah, that was it was Twisted Tradition, I think, was the one that was
They
very
did that
like
for
reminiscent to that.
Twisted Tradition and Trick or Treat, and I absolutely loved that visual. That was one of my favorite HHN setups as far as like props go.
Yeah, it's such an easy win too, because like you said, they do it so well. Yeah, and they have the props somewhere. Like, just roll it out. Like, you can make any like talking about sweets too. Like, it's very not Halloween on the nose, but it's the theme of Halloween fits very well. It's not about jack-o'-lanterns and stuff like that, but it was set around trick or treating, and it had that atmosphere. Which,
right.
Yes, we need that. That's for sure.
Yeah, just a little bit more Halloween representation at Halloween Horror Nights would be great.
So, Jamie, why don't you go next before we steal one again?
So, went over that one. So this is for a house. Although it probably won't happen. It's kind of related to things we've been seeing in the past, and it's kind of been popping up as well. As much as I love Blumhouse, I really don't want to see Megan again this year, and probably in a house. But instead, I would like to see, and I think I've mentioned it on a previous episode before, but a Black Phone 1 and 2 house. Even though the movie's coming out later in October, they still did it with Exorcist Believer, and I mean, there's a pretty good hype behind the Black Phone already, so I think people would enjoy it regardless.
I'm so curious what the Black Phone 2 is.
Me too. I know.
Yeah, how did we continue that story? Because it felt kind of self-contained.
Yeah, I mean, he's super dead.
I follow Scott Derrickson on Instagram, and he's so like vague with it with how he describes it too. And I'm like, the grabber's got to be back, I guess, with how he's been posting about it, because I think they're almost done with filming, if not already finished. But we'll see.
You gotta milk those franchises when you can, man. You know what I mean?
I'm pretty sure it's going to be set in high school, is what I was reading. That it was kind of like a coming of age middle school, but now like it's going to be high school.
It is incredible to me that they, you take a 100-page short story, not even 100 pages, and you manage to milk two movies out of it. That's kind of insane. But
is it really? Is the book that short? I didn't realize.
It's a short story. It's not even a full book.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, that makes more sense. But
if Megan's announced, I'll wear a friggin' Megan costume. Stupid fucking doll thing. Nobody wants to see it. I'll make them cancel it.
Don't give in.
I guess I'll talk house too, because one of my wish list items is we need one more house. At least one more house. I don't know if it's going to happen. It was kind of a rumor, and then it seems like it's sort of tapered off a little bit. But with Epic being open during this season, I think you have 3 extra hotels worth of guests now during that time. So I'm assuming it's going to be all sold out. And they're going to want to come to Horror Nights, because I don't know what time Epic's going to close, but you would imagine if people are coming down, they would spend at least maybe one night at Horror Nights, do Epic during the day, and come over to Horror Nights at nighttime. Mm-hmm. So you're going to need to put people somewhere. And we've already felt the pressure of that the last couple of years without having that extra influx of people. So I think this is, it would make sense, which makes me think it won't happen this year because it makes too much sense. But it's a necessity that it has to be in the near future, I would say. And I think that this year would be the perfect year to kind of
they have to expand it. And to be honest with you, I think they've kind of set it up to be done at some point. Like, obviously opening up those 2 new tents, they've now got space to add additional tents, either back where they had them before, or probably in possibly other locations. But it's something they have to consider doing at some point, because just the one stage show and 10 houses at this point isn't enough to complete traffic flow. It's just, there's just not enough going on, especially on the busier nights. So yeah, they definitely need to expand it in some way, whether that's an extra house, an extra 2 houses, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely time, that's for sure.
Yeah, and with Epic opening, like you said, Nick, there's just going to be so many more people, there's just going to be a larger number of people coming in for the theme park now, and naturally that's just going to also occur in October. It's not like people are going to not show up in October just because, it's Horror Nights. Like, it's just going to be more people.
Mm-hmm.
So we hope that Epic will pull some of the crowd away, but I doubt it.
No, I think if people are coming for, say they're just doing like 2 days at Epic, I would imagine they're going to stay longer than those 2 days, and they're going to do islands,
Right.
studios, and if you're coming during that time frame of late August, September, October, you're probably throwing Horror Nights in there as well, and just kind of check everything off the list. But that's one wish list item that I got. So Seamus, what else do you have?
Well, we're talking about Epic. Nick and I kind of talked about this a little bit when we looked at the spec map. I think initially, this is going to sound weird coming from me, but I really do have hope that there's going to be a Monsters house. I know we talked about how because Monsters has its own dark universe now, if there's no Monsters house, I think that's really going to be disappointing for a lot of people. Maybe more so for others than me, but like I said, the last couple of them have grown on me. Obviously, last year's wasn't nearly as good as the year prior, and I get the names all screwed up, so I don't remember which ones are which.
Unmasked.
Unmasked is the one that I really liked. Last year was kind of a disappointment for me, but like just not having one at this point would be like really,
Weird.
really strange. It would be weird to not have a Monsters house. And like I said, even for me, it would be kind of like cheaping out if they were like, well, just go to Epic and see the Dark Universe. It's like, okay, cool. I've already given you enough money to come to Horror Nights. I wanted a Horror Nights because it's been at Horror Nights for the last 5 years. Like, I'm not going to now have to go pay for an Epic. Maybe because what if I wasn't planning on going to Epic? You know what I mean? Like right away. Mm-hmm. It just that would bother me a little bit, teensy tiny bit.
One thing that I don't have on my wish list item, but kind of maybe combining a little bit of what Xandra wanted, what you wanted, and what I think they might do is if you do a Universal Monsters scare zone and you have the monsters from Dark Universe, so like you do have the representation. It sort of fits that Halloween-y, like classic Halloween horror vibes, but it also serves very much as a preview of like, hey, come give us your money over at this other park. Kind of like all the other ones, the Blumhouse and stuff like that. It's
as long as it doesn't feel too much like a walking advertisement, I'd be okay with that. But if it feels like Blumhouse felt last year, then I'll still be disappointed because Blumhouse last year was pretty bad. I mean, that scare zone, there was so much more they could have done with it, and they didn't do nearly anything with it other than to say, "Hey, look what we have." Mm-hmm. And I think who was it on? Was it, I forget who it was from 365 that said that they were worried that they figured it was just a cash grab, and he ended up being right.
Yeah. It might have been Jonathan. I think
was Jonathan? Yeah, it was Jonathan. I think it had said it. And he feels like, it feels like it's just a cash grab at this point, which is probably true because it felt that way.
Yeah.
And I was kind of bummed by that. So as long as that doesn't do nearly as bad as that was, then I'll be okay. But like if it feels like it's just like a hey, come to Epic advertisement like that, that would bother me. Because then it feels like a waste of a scare zone.
Yeah, they're walking around with signs like, yeah, we're just down 5 miles down the road. Come down and see us later.
Right. Come eat Frankie at Epic.
Yeah. So another thing that I had that kind of lines in then, because that one was just sort of off the cuff, but I want scare zone relevancy back. I want 5 scare zones as promised. I want 5 of them, not 4, not 3.5, because it was an advertisement and a blank whatever up front. I want 5 consistent, well thought out, good scare zones. Because
a good San Francisco scare zone, because we haven't had one of those in like 3 years.
It just kind of blows my mind.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, what she said. Yeah. That too.
It blows my mind that sometimes they nail it with these scare zones, and sometimes like I'm just curious where the drop off from idea to execution is with some of them.
I don't know,
because they can kill it. They've shown amazing scare zones at every individual spot, but never the same years. It's always like one giant hit and then a couple, sprinkled out here and there. But even just going through the last couple of years, right? Like I loved Anarcade up front. I loved Sweets in Vamp to an extent, but that was a great New York scare zone. When they had Graveyard Deadly Unrest in Hollywood, they had Conjure the Dark in San Fran, and a lot of them, like Vikings Undead, I really liked, and I like all the ones Xandra mentioned earlier with Twisted Tradition and Trick or Treat. Like they've done amazing scare zones at every single aspect of the park. They just haven't tied it together all one year, I don't think. So I'd like to see that. And I'd like to see the 5 scare zones back, because it just really, that first scare zone just, it feels like it's slowly being washed away.
Yeah, last year there was it has been minimized down to just scare actors and the HHN Arch. Like there was no props, there was no theming, and and I feel like that's an important area because that's your intro to the event. That's like your first impression of the event, and they used to go so full out with it all the way down Production Central, but now that it's mainland, you can't really touch it. But they still have a big enough area that I feel like they could do a little more with it. Because I don't even consider, I know they consider it a scare zone, but I don't really consider that a scare zone anymore. It's just like a area with scare actors.
Yeah, I view that area as like the hostess at a restaurant. And the mindset always with the hostess is you're the first person they see and the last person they see. So like it's your job is like
but it's like the hostess at like an IHOP or Friendly's. It's not even like
that's what it was last year.
Just at a good restaurant. That's the problem.
It was like the lady at Waffle House yelling at me.
Right, exactly. You like to be seated and you're going to be waiting 25 minutes. It's empty in here. Why are we taking so long?
Just go to this table. There's blood on it.
I think even like we only cover it because they call it a scare zone. Like if in reality, when we talk about like a lot of the lead up to stuff, we could say like, we could just completely ignore it for the most part because it feels like Universal ignores it, and that sucks because like Xandra just said, there's a ton of good space up there that they could utilize. They're just not completely fully utilizing. I think the Dr. Oddfellow section a couple of years ago was so underwhelming. It's like what you were going for. I get it, but you just didn't nail it. There's just not enough going on. There wasn't enough there. And then last year it was like, hey, let's just come up with something really quick because we don't know what to put here. And that's really what it felt like.
It was nothing. Yeah, it was just sinister and surreal on top of the arches. And then that was it.
A couple chainsaws maybe here and there.
Chainsaws. Props.
Don't steal one of my ideas. Get rid of the chainsaws.
Is that on your wish list? Get rid of
that is on my wish list.
Please.
Remove the chainsaws.
So many people are going to be upset.
I'm just joking. I'm kidding. Everybody likes it. You can have them. You can have your chainsaws. It's fine.
Put them back in Simpsons. Don't make it a horde.
I mean, seriously, put them back in Simpsons. It's not going to be Simpsons forever anyways. So
I hate that they don't do anything in Simpsons anymore. It just feels so empty over there now.
Disney.
So,
now. That's really what it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So Xandra, want to jump in on one of your other items you got for us?
Yeah, I'll switch it up a little bit. So I would love to see the return of the Lagoon show. I really, really enjoyed the first one that they had, the Marathon of Mayhem, and the second two weren't as impressive to me, but I still really liked that they had it. I think it's a huge crowd eater, and we really need one of those now that Rip Ride Rocket is going to be closing in September, and that is a huge crowd eater. So if you're not going to add another house, you really need to add another show. We only have Nightmare Fuel right now, and I'm a huge fangirl of Nightmare Fuel, as a lot of people know, but we need more shows than that.
Yeah.
Nightmare Fuel is packed to the brim every night. It's at capacity, and the crowds are just building up more and more every year. So if you're going to take away an attraction, you got to just replace it with something. I also just really love the Lagoon shows. I feel like they kind of elevate the hype and energy park-wide because you can see it from so many areas of the park. You can hear it in the bass and the visuals and the flashing lights. It feels like there's just more happening, especially now that, like you said, Simpsons and kind of the whole World Expo area past the Lagoon is a little dead these days. So it kind of livens up that energy and just adds something to the whole experience. So I would really like to see that come back.
Yeah, that's the Lagoon show had the aspect of what I liked for the first year or two of Nightmare Fuel was where I could kind of just stroll up and join the show versus Nightmare Fuel I do enjoy it still. But like you said, it's always packed. So you have to be waiting for it. And I'm
every show.
Yeah. And I just hate dedicating that time, I view it as dead time, which is the same as if I was waiting for a house, but like I still view it that way for me because I know it's a 30-minute show. So if I'm waiting for 30 minutes, it's like that's at least an hour commitment
It
versus
is.
the Lagoon show. I could just kind of roll up on, catch the tail end or catch the beginning, and then be on my way. I
Right.
missed that Lagoon show.
Yeah, it just kind of gives you something to do. And if you're just like strolling around with a drink, you can kind of just pull up to the back of the crowd and still enjoy it and just like have that as a little time filler. So bring it back. Why not? Right? They can do
Right.
it. We know they can do it. So
It's been like 2 years. Like it's got to be fixed by now. I don't want to hear the hurricane broke it. It's been 2 years. You've
if they
built
can do
almost an entire theme
sensational,
park.
they have the
Yeah.
technology to do the Lagoon show.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do drone shows. You can make a whole new parade. You can do multiple events. You can make an
Yeah.
entire theme park. But you haven't been able
I mean,
to
they
fix
have
the
a
Lagoon show.
they have a Lagoon show just for the regular park now. So like, there's zero excuses to not have one for Horror Nights.
The equipment works. And if they don't do the Lagoon show, they still really need to put in another crowd eater if they're going to take out Rip Ride and only have Nightmare Fuel and not add
Agreed.
another house. We got to have something.
Yeah, no,
100%.
I agree.
Because I mean, they don't
Jamie.
really have another ride to open up either, right? Because they've got, as of right now, Mummy and Goblin or whatever, the Gringotts, but they don't really have another ride. I guess Men in Black, but
You could do
that doesn't really eat that many people.
Unless they open up
Yes.
BT for the homies.
They
Open up BT for the
can
homies.
now.
They definitely
I mean,
can now.
Yeah, they don't
I
use the
think they
queue,
should
so
open
they
up the
definitely
queue.
could.
Turn off all the lights, blast like some crazy music. It would be fun.
Be so fun.
Just do a Stranger Things overlay in there. It's pretty much the same layout.
Nick has said that for
it's
years,
sticking.
and I'm like, that's a good idea.
Yep. So, Jamie, what's another one of your little wish list items you got for us?
Well, it definitely had one same kind of as Xandra. I just feel like we desperately need another show of some sort, something to eat up the crowd. But I don't want to copy too much of what you said because that's pretty much what I had on here. But I had kind of an idea if we do get a Monsters house this year, I'd really like to see something along the lines of like a Tales of Dracula house. I know you guys are Dracula's biggest fan, but since they never want to give me friggin' Creature from the Black Lagoon, which I don't think it's going to happen again this year, might as well have my second favorite. So I'd like to see the different interpretations of Dracula. I know we saw a lot of Dracula's Daughter last year and the female versions and stuff like that, and we had it with one of the first iterations of the Monster House with Frankenstein, but I really just liked one focused around him, and I feel like it would kind of be similar to Unmasked in the sense that the facade they can make very like beautiful, gothic, like Romanian style, like maybe even like Nosferatu, that essence, but something like that would really tickle my fancy.
Yeah,
if they end up doing a Monsters house this year. Maybe not for you guys, but
really looking forward to a Dracula house.
That's more of like a wish list item, like probably never happened, but I could wish.
I mean, I don't think you're far off, right? Like, why wouldn't they center a whole? I mean, they've used him, but not as like the main focus, really.
That's what I was.
He's always a bit player in anything he's in for some reason.
He's a side character. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they can totally have that. That's fine.
Or my other one was Creature, but I feel like Dracula would probably be more likely than Creature at this point. But I'll just say it again, and I'll say it every year until we get it that we need a Creature for house. So
I agree.
I love selling all his merch.
I was just gonna say the amount of merch and new stuff that I see at the park every single time I go is like, you guys love my boy so much too. I know you do. I just don't know why you don't do it.
wasn't it an anniversary for him this year? Like
75, I think.
75th, I think, or something like that. So yeah, it's like, what the hell? Come on, show our boy some love. Show Gilman some love. Let's see. I think we're gonna go. I only really get one other one I could think of, and I don't care what it is. I just want something Samhain themed.
Okay.
Or at least along those lines, like kind of like Blood Moon, but like focus more on the celebration of Samhain. Just because I don't think they've really tapped into that before, and whether it's a scare zone or a house or just an overall theme, and kind of bring you back to that like 1600s witch style, again, whatever it might ends up being, like scare actors that are in robes and do the whole Blood Moon thing, and That would be fun. I think it kind of goes along with what Xandra was saying earlier, where like you don't really have that classic Halloween feel anymore. This isn't quite the same thing, but it would still kind of be something along the lines a little bit less IP focused, which I feel like we've kind of gotten quite a bit lately. Is really IP focused in a lot of ways, and I think that they need to cut back just a little bit and kind of go back to doing more traditional, original ideas. So, and obviously last year, notwithstanding, because they had 6. Was it last year with the 6 original houses, or was it the year before? Whatever it was, but
Yeah.
was it last year?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think obviously notwithstanding that, which was kind of out of their control, but I don't know. I know Jamie is the resident IP fan. She doesn't want to hear me say that, but
I was just gonna say, I was like, yeah.
I think doing a Blood Moon like prequel could kind of like scratch that itch a little bit, like the origin of that Wiccan tradition. Or
even if they stuck that in Central Park, because I think that area needs something along those lines for a scare zone. And like last year, I was worried that they were going to over fog it, make it really hard to like focus and see anything, and they did a pretty good job of not allowing that to happen. So I think that helps. So hopefully they can keep going with that, and maybe they hear us, maybe they listen to us, and they're like, we can't fog it too much because that Seamus kid fucking hates us.
Yeah, right. Get rid of the chainsaws. Here comes Seamus.
Get rid of the chainsaws. Hey,
86 of chainsaws. One of mine is kind of vague / open to whoever's interpretation, but I want a white whale wow me IP. I want something that kind of comes like completely, off the reserve of what they've done in the past, because as we've found and done with our guess maps and speculate, like there is patterns of predictability for this a little bit to an extent. And it's been a while since we've got something where we're like, wow, they're doing a Shining house. Like they're doing,
don't
versus Predator.
Me. Like, don't do that.
Like, those are houses in the past that
don't do that to me.
They've done. So like The Thing, like an original Thing, like It, Scream, Conjuring, like some white whale IP that's out there that they haven't been able to do before. I
you know
want
what it's
them
called?
to be able to obtain it.
It's called Ridley Scott's classic Alien. That's what they need to do. And if they don't do that or Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, Universal, I know you're listening. Mike Aiello, I know you're listening to me. If you don't make that happen in the next couple of years, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. I might just riot.
I already put Aiello on the spot at Spook Empire 2 or 3 years ago about Season of the Witch.
You did. But now people know who we are. Like then it was kind of like, who's this joker? Now
who's this chump?
Now they're like, oh, we must be able to listen to them. They have some pull.
I'll get back in with them and be like, so about that Season 3, which house? What we got? What do you got for us?
What would you want, Nick? What would be your white whale? What would wow you?
Like honestly, probably. I mean, any of those, any of those listed. Yeah, Scream. Wearing the ghost face.
There you go. Ghost face.
But yeah, really any of those from that list, like It, The Thing, Conjuring, Scream, Halloween 3,
The Lost Boys.
Like exactly, Lost Boys is one that's like you wouldn't. It's not on your radar to be like, oh, it makes sense why it would. Yeah, they need to do something to surprise people.
Well, I think a recent one is Terrifier.
That's kind of
for a lot of people. That's a lot of people's white whale.
Yeah, and that would be. I would consider that one where it was like it's kind of been tossed around for a couple of years now. It's not. It's obviously gotten sort of mainstream now, but it would still stick out as like a little bit of an odd choice. But I guess you could say that about last year with A Quiet Place. For some people, maybe that was their
still an odd choice.
For me, it was not. Yeah. But that's what I want. I want like a white whale.
I don't know. I wouldn't know if I would consider it. I mean, not to get into this discussion. This actually could be a unique discussion we could have at some other point. But like, what do we consider white whales versus what aren't really white whales? But yeah, I think it's definitely unique to each person. But there are definitely certain properties that that everybody wants to see. And I would classify like Halloween 3 Season of the Witch is not a white whale because you and I want to see it. But I can't imagine how many people care that deeply about it that they want to see a house.
It'd probably be the same thing like when the movie came out. Everyone would go in and then they'd be like, wait, where was Michael Myers?
Where's Michael Myers?
Mikey?
I heard Halloween was here and there's no Mikey.
You know, like if you did a Friday the 13th or Nightmare was rumored last year, you know, like they haven't really been around too much. I don't view those as white whales because they've been there in the past to an extent, but something that's just completely off the reservation. So that's what I got for that one. Xandra, what else you got on your list?
Next thing I have on my list is I want to see more Insidious level scares. Last year, Insidious was kind of an outlier in the sense that everyone was calling it like the scariest house at HHN, maybe the scariest house of all time. I don't know if I agree with that, but it was really intense. And you know that I was dropping to the floor and screaming my head off.
Oh yeah, I had to catch you a couple times.
And it remained like that the whole season. It was the last house I went through last season on my last night there, and it still got me just as good, maybe even a little bit more so every time, because you'd be approaching that curtain section and like you knew it was coming, but you didn't know exactly where or when they were going to pop out of the curtains. So to me, like that set a certain standard for what they can do, how scary they can make a house. I feel like when I was younger, maybe it was just because I was young and new to the event back in like 2011, every house felt like that. Like every house felt that intense. And I thought maybe I'm just so desensitized from going for 14 years that like it just doesn't get me anymore. But that house proved that it really still can be that intense. So they're capable of doing it. People loved it. Obviously, everyone was raving about it. One house of the year. So I don't want to just have one Insidious level scare house of the year. I want like half the houses to be like that. Why can't every house be like that? You know, like they have the scare design, they have the scare actors who are willing to like go to those levels. So that's what I want to see more of, scarier houses.
Yeah, just take a bunch
I
of
like
pre-workout and let them go to work.
And I'm glad you said that too about being younger, because me going to the event when I was younger as well, I felt the exact same way, that I was like, maybe it's just because I was a kid, but like it was a lot scarier back then, like very intense. And like how you said it perfectly with the Insidious house, I just wish every house could be like that, because obviously I got very scared in that house too. And it's fun, it's exhilarating. It's like, damn, like this is the feeling that I want, like when I go through a house, you know. And it's kind of sucks that it was only mainly through that one. You did get a couple jump scares here and there in the other houses, but nothing compared to how the level was in that one.
No,
Right.
yeah,
I want to see that every house if
Mhm.
possible.
and again, to like the white whale stuff, like I feel like you could do that with a Conjuring house. You know, it's very similar build where it's you could just do the series as a whole, and you could have that intensity.
The Conjuring universe.
So, Jamie, what do you have on your list?
So another one that I've had on here, I'm getting down to my last couple ones, was another house, kind of, I guess, on the wish list of rumored things that have been talked about, but I am going to give into the hype, and I really do hope that we see Terrifier this year, because I think it would be a huge IP draw. It'd be something I'd be really excited to see, because I feel like the IPs have kind of lacked for me, unfortunately, these last couple years, and haven't really been something that personally I'm as interested in. I know other people are and have been, but just when we have things like The Last of Us and A Quiet Place and some of these houses that are taking spots, I feel like that's kind of how I felt like with The Quiet Place last year, is that it took a spot for like a bigger name IP that could have been on there.
Yeah, no, I felt that way too. And it's kind of like when you're not in love with the IP, it's like you understand other people like it, but it's still you're left a little disappointed. You're like,
maybe it's just me being selfish, but
oh, it is. But I do that too, because I'm like, I don't want
kind of
this.
is,
I
but
want something else. Like I'll just
something
if
I
I could,
like.
if I could roll the dice on swapping it out for something else, I would. I'm a gambling man. I would take the chance on like swapping something.
But let's be honest too. I mean, specifically with the Last of Us, not the Last of Us. I'm sorry, with Quiet Place. Who was asking for that? I mean, I can't imagine there was that many people clamoring for The Last of Us to become a house. So I think that if it was something along the lines of, like Nick was saying, The Conjuring, and people were like, like I could do without The Conjuring, that makes, I mean, that's something that's, I think everybody is asking for. Terrifier is something that a lot of people right now are asking for. So yeah, I think that there definitely needs to be a reassessment as to what we use for our big IP draws, because they just haven't had one in the last couple of years. I think there were a couple that surprised a lot of people that weren't expecting it, like The Exorcist from 2 years ago. Like that house, I don't think anybody gave it any chance, and then it was quite possibly the best house that year. So
it's top. It was in the top.
Sure. It's sometimes they surprise you, but then again, sometimes they'll announce something and you're like, wait, what? Like, why? Well, who needs that? Who wants that? But
yeah, I have two left. One sort of, no, neither of them are relevant to what we're talking about. But I did put relevant icons. I want icons that again sort of tie in. We just did it with Oddfellow in a good way, where he sort of had his hands in a lot of different places. He had a house about him, and then we followed that up with Sinister and Surreal, who I view them as like halfway finished products. Like they were really cool. I wanted to hear more about the story, but they just sort of threw one into a scare zone, one into the other scare zone, and that was it. There was no other deep explanation. There was no house dedicated to them. There was no real overarching theme. I would prefer to have them involved a little bit more. So I would like, and it seems like we're going to have an icon, just because if we're going down the past couple of years, we did Pumpkin Lord, we did, like I said, Oddfellow, we did Sinister Surreal. It seems like we're building up this new icon chapter, whether you kind of consider them icons or not. I think that's a different debate as well, but they're still, I view them as icons, whether they're just figureheads or whatever, but I want to get one that really ties in again.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going along with that, you just made me think of something. I think that it's time we give Cindy Kane her time to shine.
Yeah.
I feel like they just haven't really given her a chance. And I think it's time to give us an adult Cindy Kane has now taken over for her father and let her have her own event. It's been too long, and it's time to let her have her moment.
Like if we're building towards what I hope, which we've been speculating for 2 years now, is that Civil War style storyline. Not to dip too heavy into MCU, but
Disney.
That's
don't
what I was
come
saying.
after us. Don't come after us, Disney.
But if they do that Civil War style of old versus new, Cindy is old, but you could dust her off kind of like Oddfellow. Oddfellow was around a long time ago, but he's still in that new crop. You could have that older Cindy Kane and have her, kill the caretaker or something. If we're really done with the icons of Icon Pass, you could have them kind of battle not one on one, but that's
the new icons. Give us new icons that are within the lore, and expand, from there.
Yeah,
I like that. It's time to do that.
Yeah. Xandra, what else do you have on your list if you have anything left on there?
Yeah, I have two left. Which one should I go with? Okay. So I would really like to see another rendition of the tribute store being directly tied into its surrounding scare zone. They did this really well in 2022 with the summer tribute store. And it had all the retro 80s blockbusters like E.T. and Jaws and Back to the Future. But it was set in that canon location of the tribute theater. And then as the summer went on, it started dropping hints, and there was they kind of started transforming into this spookier atmosphere. And then it stayed the same facade and location, it was still the tribute theater for HHN, but it was the tribute theater in the 50s as opposed to the 80s, and it had all the lore, and they were dropping hints for that scare zone for Sweet Revenge. And then it was just part essentially of the scare zone. It directly tied into the story. I just thought that was so much fun, and that was so cool. It really gave me something to look forward to for those torturous last few weeks of summer before HHN begins, where you're just clawing at any new information that you can get and any hints for the lore and the stories. So the way they built that up was great for me. I loved that there was tribute store lore for the first time, and it kind of made it its own attraction. So I'm thinking they kept the tribute store open last summer through HHN, and then had the HHN tribute store in the regular New York location. So if they can do that again and just make a summer tribute store in Hollywood that eventually ties into whatever scare zone is in Hollywood, I think that would be fantastic. It's really just like throwing the fans a bone as well, and like the locals who get to see it kind of evolve. Yeah,
Yeah, it
I really like
adds
that. I want to see it again.
it adds a nice layer for us, and it just don't put a giant dumpster out in front of the scare zone or storage container. Just
Yes.
don't do that
Yeah,
one again.
and it felt so out of place last year. I really
Very.
love the tribute store by itself and like the scare zone individually, but it was such a weird clash of themes, and I'm all about cohesive theming. So
Yeah. And just
Make it
unfortunately by where they're laid out, like you almost are forced to do that, and I think they tried to not do it, and it definitely just stuck out.
and they did it so well in 2022 that I'm like, why don't you do that again? It was so
Yeah,
easy.
right? And
yeah.
Seamus, you had something on
No, I
that.
was just say, and please widen the inside of it a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about anybody else, but I get so claustrophobic in that freaking tribute store that like it's almost not enjoyable to go through it because there's just a million people and there's no room to spread out. So maybe just widen it a little bit.
Just a little something, please. I want to be able to walk through there and not be just pushed around like I'm in the mosh pit. Um, I don't know if Jamie's here, so I'm going to give my last one, which was more. Yeah, it was a little jokey, but I just like being right about stuff. I want to have at least 3 correct guesses on our guess map, just for me, just to say I did it, just because I want to. But that was my last little false wish, but I still feel good about it. I'm strong on those originals. Now that that Fear Street promo came out with prom night, I'm feeling even more
I
comfortable
haven't
with our
watched that
little
yet. I gotta do
our
that.
prom night pitch.
Premonition.
Yeah, so we'll see. I'm hoping we get at least 3 right this year, and that was my last wish. Jamie,
What
what do
was
you have?
what was your last wish? I'm sorry. I heard Daisy chewing on something under the bed, so I had to go check on that real quick.
I said I wanted to get at least 3 correct on our guess map
That's a good
for
number. Okay.
for selfish reasons.
I think that's good.
But
Okay.
so Jamie, what do you have for one of your lasts?
So for my last one that I had, this one's kind of, I guess, a niche one, but it's more like food and drink centralized. So I really want to see more themed foods from the booths that have take home like souvenirs that come with it. Kind of like how they did The Last of Us, the ravioli can. In the tribute store one year, they had the Stranger Things cake that came in like the little like Hellfire cauldron that I still have, or like they did the light bulb for that absolutely rancid drink from A Quiet Place that I still got because I really wanted the light bulb cup. But I just like seeing little stuff like that because if I'm going to be paying a little bit more for the food, it's like at least I get a cool like souvenir to keep with it too.
Little,
Mhm.
little
Jamie
see?
wants more Chotskis.
I do.
Yeah, I was gonna
As
say
if I
that.
need more.
Yeah,
As
more,
if
more
I need
bullshit laying
more.
around here.
I can use this for a pen holder.
Yeah, I have so many different little just things
Mhm.
everywhere. But yeah, so then Xandra, it seems like you might have one last item then.
I do, and it's like it's so specific. So to tie into my planetary bombardment, I would love, and I've been wanting this for years, but it's never happened. And it was like really strongly rumored a couple years ago, but it didn't happen then either, and I was really bummed out. I really want to see the invasion scare zone turned into a house,
Yep.
and I loved that scare zone. It was like so wacky and colorful, and it was so small. It was in like that kind of weird area, and they did so much with it. I feel like aliens are underrepresented at HHN, and I'm terrified of aliens. It's like the scariest thing for me in horror because I was traumatized as a child from Signs. I watched it when I was like 7, and it terrified me so
Speaking my
much.
language.
Even today, when I hear like vominos, children, I like my heart starts pounding. And so I love anything with like alien invasions in a cornfield, especially like in a farm setting. So what I want to see is turn that scare zone into a house, but instead of like invasion, call it like abduction. And it kind of picks up from where the scare zone left off. And so like it starts with the invasion and you're kind of in like that farm setting and there's this like weird crazy aliens coming after you. But then you get abducted into their spaceship and the second phase of the house is like you're in their ship and maybe they could have those like windows that they have in the Space Mountain queue at Magic Kingdom with like the stars, and it could just be like crazy body horror with them performing experiments on their abducted victims. And I just loved like how it was so colorful. Like they had like the bubbles and the strobes and the fog. I just think it would be one of those like really loud, like chaotic houses with a lot of kinetic energy. A little bit like how Sweet Revenge or Major Sweets Candy Factory was last year. So kind of like that, and like Killer Clowns from 2019. That same energy where it's like almost like a fun house, but it's also terrifying and there's like really gory stuff going on. That's what I want.
I'm here for
Please,
it. Hey,
HHN.
you said signs, and I'm in. And you could also tie that into some of Seamus's wish list of like Alien. Like once you're on the ship, it doesn't have to be as jokey. This thing could be intense.
Right, and if it wasn't like a jokey house, like if they don't adapt the scare zone, I still want to see real alien representation at HHN. Again, I'm like so scared of aliens, especially like the gray man kind of alien from like Dark Skies and Signs
Mhm.
and those movies. If they did like a really scary, like Insidious level scary house, not campy, just straight dark with those aliens, that would be an all-timer for me because I would shit my pants.
Swing away, Meryl. Swing away. So
Yes.
yeah, no, I'm in. I'm on board with that one for sure. Is any other wish list items for us, or should we start diving into some of these Instagram ones? Because there's a handful, and we're not going to spend a crazy amount of time because I don't want to keep everybody here too long. But there's a lot in here.
Let's
So
hear them.
all right, so we'll just go through them because a lot of these we probably have touched on a little bit, but we have a lot of mentions of multiple houses, 12 houses, another house, something like that, which I think we were all in agreement. Somebody pretty much took the words out of Xandra's mouth as well, where they said at least one house that is at the caliber of Insidious. So we want that scare
Nice.
level, that
Mhm.
scare factor. A lot of these are kind of what we talked about with the white whale aspect. We have people wanting Fear Street, Lost Boys, Seamus, you'll like this, a Stephen King mashup house, Terrifier. There's a bunch of Terrifiers. Michael Myers, Scream. There's a couple for Wicked Growth Part 2, which I don't think we really fully discussed. We talked about
We
Graveyard
never even
Games as a
mentioned
sequel,
that,
but
but
Wicked Growth 2 could be a fun. I think that's a property that I do think we will see again at some point. I think it was rumored on an early spec map last year that there was some sort of return to Wicked Growth's
I think
house.
I'd prefer a return to the Scarecrow. What is it called there?
Oh, the
The
Reaping
Reaping.
and
Reaping.
Cursed Soil is the scare zone. Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to see that. More entertainment, which kind of goes in line with Xandra's Lagoon show and kind of just giving somewhere or giving a place for people to go because it does get a little bumpy out there. Let's see. This one's interesting. HHN Icons action figures.
I love it. Oh my god, I
More,
love it.
more tchotchkes.
Ooh.
More bullshit for the
Speaking
shelves.
my language now. I was thinking too, because we kind of already had one, and I was like, yeah, but I kind of wish they did more like Studio Screamers kind of things, like mystery boxes, blind boxes stuff. I just love stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say if they wanted to do like some limited edition premium
If they made figures, they would sell for
figures,
sure.
like the ones that like stay
Hot
in
Toys.
boxes. I forget
Mhm.
who the hell makes a lot of the horror movie ones because I've got a couple. I got a Michael
NECA.
Myers one and stuff. NECA, maybe is that
Mhm.
it? Like if they did, like even just the Universal monsters, like do some premium monsters figures, that'd be kind of cool.
Mhm.
Well,
But
it's like
icons are cool too, I guess.
like the Hot Toys, like over at the Island side in the Marvel store, they have
Mhm.
all of those like really accurate, and they're a couple $100, but they're
Yeah.
pretty cool.
They are cool.
Another hobby that I do not need to self-indulge in.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't need to spend any more money on myself.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Someone put houses without conga lines, which you can't. It's tough to do. If that's I would just say premium Scream Night if they do it again, because that seems like what
Yeah.
it more or less would be. Either that, or unfortunately, you have to do what we do: wait until 2 a.m. Just go into the house at 1:59 and sorry, characters. Like I just
Unfortunately,
wanted a good run. Yeah,
as a sleepy girl.
that's a tricky thing to
Or
pull off.
just go during the week and stay a little bit later than everyone else. Like
Yeah,
after midnight on a weeknight, it's
Mhm.
pretty slow. I mean, you can usually get away from the crowds, but
Yeah, you can fake a limp like I do. Just kind of create a gap. I mean, I don't fake a limp. I have a real thing.
Just slow
My back
down,
hurts.
look around,
Yeah,
admiring it,
drop my phone, do something.
smile at the attendant so they know you're nice and let you take a little slow time.
No, my
Thank you.
back hurts.
The
Spinal.
key is to create the gap between you and the person in front of you when you're going like around corners where
Yes.
there's no house attendants, and just
Yeah.
kind of
Mhm.
walk like don't stop, just walk a
Mhm.
little slower, get like a good like 7-foot gap.
Mhm.
It's basically like you have the whole house to yourself.
Don't create too big of a gap because you might accidentally walk through an exit door of a house, just
Oh.
continuing in the line.
I've definitely almost walked into the wrong spots in houses.
Wait, did I tell you guys that I not only walked through an exit door on opening night of HHN last year in A Quiet Place, but I
Oh
also walked
no.
straight into a boo hole the last night I was there in A Quiet Place.
Not in a
With my
quiet place.
parents. I was like,
I
guys, I know these houses like the back of my hand. Like,
No
follow me.
problem.
And I walked straight
got-
into this boo hole like a dumbass. So
I think I did something similar opening night at the Halloween house where it was like you were in front of the house, but they had like all the cloths hanging and stuff like that. I like
Yes.
walked through the cloths instead of taking a left or something, and then they were like, "Oh, this way, this way." I was like, "I don't fucking know." Like I have no idea where I'm going.
I remember that time because too, I think the same thing happened to me. I think we actually created a little bit of a gap like that because we were both like looking around, and I turn a corner and Mikey's right there and he's like pointing the other way, and I was like, "Oh, guess I'm not supposed to go this way." And I always feel bad when like
actor is like,
I know, and I'm like, "Oh my god, you guys are doing a great job." Sorry. I was so excited. Or like during Slaughter one night, Nick got us 3D glasses for like the heavy metal hell 3D part, and I was like, oh man, this is going to be sick. And so we were walking through, and then I kept him on for the clowns part, and I was so kind of been from a couple drinks too, but so just like mystified by the 3D glasses that I definitely almost ran into one of the walls in the clown room because it was so like spaced out and the lights were tripping me out. I was like, oh man, I guess this is why they don't provide the 3D glasses anymore. People get mixed up in here.
Yeah, that's that I think is more justified than like us just being dumb. Like
Yeah,
you had
yeah.
a pair of shitty 3D glasses on, like
Right.
your depth perception is already completely gone.
That's
so.
a good wish list item, even though we're out of it, is to bring back 3D houses. I'd love to see another 3D house.
yes. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. Yes. 100%. I've been hoping for that for years, but
Mhm.
Yeah. Nathan put, it'll never happen, but this is also a white whale, a Tucker and Dale versus Evil House.
oh, that would be so
That'd be fun.
Like, if you're going to do a comedy house, I'm all aboard with that.
Mhm.
Salt and vinegar twisted taters. You
Mhm.
know what I am looking for sure.
You know your boy.
They also tacked on Blood Moon sequel. So Seamus, they're speaking
Yeah.
Nice.
I still want Graveyard Games first, but I'll take Blood
Right.
Moon too if I have to.
Either way, good icons with an extended storyline. We kind of hit upon that a
Mhm.
little bit. More mocktails. I think
Ooh.
that's a good thing that we didn't really talk about
Mhm.
too much because, like,
That
going
is
back
true.
to
They
the
don't.
beginning,
They don't really offer a lot of non-alcoholic, quote unquote, drinks. So a mocktail would be a good idea.
I feel
I
like
think
this
I
last year.
started to see that. Yeah, more last year. Yeah.
Exactly. I was just gonna say, I feel like I started to see a little bit more last year with some of the like Ghostbusters one with like the marshmallow fluff on top and a couple different ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of goes into what Xandra was talking about at the very beginning with that NA Bev for Epic. Like it's a good option for a lot of people
Mhm.
because obviously
Mhm.
on this podcast we partake in the beverages, but
Not
there are
everyone
plenty of people that
indulges.
don't.
Mhm.
Correct. So it's
Mhm.
good to kind of have everybody covered,
Mhm.
and that's just more money in their pocket because instead of spending $5 or $6 on a soda, they'd probably spend $8 or $10 on juice essentially.
I like trying the mocktails
Yeah.
sometimes too. They have fun ones.
Yep.
Mhm.
Someone was asking for a body collector's origin house.
That would be terrifying.
That would be a
That was
nice
good.
That
little
would be,
throwback.
yeah, for sure.
Yep.
I like that.
Cryptids, a full-on wacky, weird cryptid house.
Yes.
It's not out of the realm of possibility the way they've done them in the past.
And the way the tribute store is
I
right
was
now.
just gonna say the tribute store. Mhm.
Yeah, I'd love a full-on, and like I don't think you need to dedicate a whole house to just one, right? Like you can do if you want to do it, do a Mothman, do the Jersey Devil, and throw them all in the same house. You don't have to do just a Chupacabras.
Yeah,
I
I'm
like
thinking
the
like
house.
a montage, kind of like Case Files from 2020. No,
Mhm.
2021. Right? Yeah. Case Files with Boris Schuster. Schuster.
I really liked I really ended up liking Case Files.
Me
that
too.
one grew. Yeah, that was definitely an unsung hero of the year for sure.
I think so
Sleeper
too.
hit, for sure.
Greek mythology house. We've been harping on that for a couple years. Maybe that'll be one of my 3 that I get right this year.
Mhm.
A lot of people
Love
wanted
that.
I want the horrors of WWE, the Wyatt Six based house. I'm interested. I the more I sit on that rumor, the more I think it will come to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
Wrestling's a
be
big thing again, I feel like. Wrestling's
it's
popular
I think
again.
it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
I think
it's
so
huge.
too.
Someone said, "Don't shove Fanta in my face."
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm fine with discontinuing that partnership.
Valid.
Do love me a little orange Fanta every now and again, though. Nothing wrong with
Yep. Yep. Actually having 5 scare zones this year. Yep,
Oh.
we talked about that one as well. The Mummy Strippers, Krampus Original, Scary Tales, Wizard of Oz. I would take pretty much any of those.
It's a good combo.
Yeah.
Honestly. That's a good little mix up there. I like that.
I like
That's
that.
Kind of hard to do a full mummy stripper house, though.
It would be a little tricky.
It'd be hard
Maybe
to
a
make that
scare
one
zone.
work.
They had
Maybe a
like
scare
a
zone.
very sexy kind of almost stripper house a while ago. I forgot which year. I think it was called From Dusk Till Dawn or something.
Oh, that was
And
the vampire one. Yes,
yeah,
that's-
and it was like
Mhm.
that, like sexy
a
vampire
little
stripper
risque.
spider
Yeah.
house, like terrifying creatures.
Was it based on the
Uh-huh.
movie?
No, I don't think
Oh,
so.
it's
It was
not.
like an original, I think. Yeah.
No,
Yeah, that was from
because
Jesselyn.
from Dusk Till Dawn is a
The vampire movie
about
too. Mhm.
vampire strippers. So
It's
interesting.
a video game too, right?
Maybe I don't know.
Oh no, it's just called Until Dawn. I think that's what it's called.
Until Dawn.
Until
Yes,
Dawn.
yes.
Yes, that's a game. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was from Jesselyn from Broken Jaw Jewelry. Shout out Jesselyn.
Ah,
Love
I
her.
love
Shout out
Jesselyn.
Jesselyn.
She's so sweet.
Eddie Schmidt, Fear Street, Creature from the Black Lagoon. These are all wish lists from people. Halloween 3. We're not alone, Chase.
Uh-oh. There we go.
Somebody put it in there. And that's really about it. Oh, we got the peanut butter burger. Nick
Oh.
loves
Oh
that.
God, no! Please don't bring that back.
No.
Me and Nick can go hammer down butter burgers while Tyler and Jamie just watch us in disgust.
Ugh. You said
And
Nick
then-
wanted that back? Oh my god.
Nick wants that back.
That's so funny.
He's an animal, just
I
like
hope he was
me.
joking.
I hope he wasn't. Regular walking tacos with Fritos. Was
Ooh,
that not-
yes.
Did we? Oh, because they went away with that, right? They did nacho cheese Doritos last
They did
year, right?
Doritos last year, I think.
Doritos.
Do they
I
do
think
like a
it was
hot?
the vegan one had Fritos.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they should do one with a hot Cheeto one.
Ooh,
Like
that'd
the
be
hot
good.
Cheetos.
Yeah. Ooh,
Flaming hot Cheetos one.
that
They
would
need-
tear Nick right up.
Yeah, it would.
Oh, I love it. I'm here. I'll see how many I can eat in
My
this year's.
insides are already screaming at me.
Yeah.
Just
Like,
thinking
I want
about
to
it.
get a really spicy food at HHN34, like
Yeah.
something that's like a challenge because
Yeah.
it's so hot.
Oh, that
That'd
would
be
be a
fun.
food, like some sort of spicy food challenge would be kind of cool.
That would be cool.
I'd love to see them do something like super out there, like a spicy curry challenge, or like something along those lines, or a ramen or something along those lines. Hey,
Yeah,
I mean, if we get that Asian Japanese whatever it is, whatever we were talking about, like if that house happens, they could do something, Japanese inspired or
Spicy.
Asian inspired.
Well, it's not Japanese. It was Chinese, but I had
Chinese.
the Szechuan chicken from the China booth at Mardi Gras, and I was like really impressed by how spicy it was. And I have
saw
a pretty
you
high
said
spice
spicy.
tolerance.
Uh-huh.
It was like I saw all the YouTubers reviewing it, and I was like, these guys don't even know spicy food. And I tried it, and I was sitting there like, oh man,
It's
they're
pretty
really
spicy.
building on
Crying.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, doing that would be fun. And that's coming up for the next year's scavenger hunt video. Then I guess we'll have to find some
Oh
sort
yeah,
of
spicy food.
spicy challenge.
Something spicy.
And be there.
That would
for
be fun.
Another thing, so we're done. All the Instagram ones are gone, but now that you sort of brought up the whole challenge aspect, something really cool that I love doing at the Hollow Scream at SeaWorld is that mystery shot.
Oh
They have
yeah,
like
they did that too.
they have like a wheel you spin, and whatever it lands on is like a number, and they just make you a shot, and you have to take it.
I'll never do it again.
And I'm pretty sure I
Was
always
yours
just get
bad?
like bad.
It
Oh, they're
was
always terrible.
probably the worst thing. It tastes like I was drinking gasoline was going down my throat,
No way.
unfortunately. Because they ask you, they're like, "Oh, what don't you like?" And then they're like, "Hee hee hee, I'm gonna make your drink with that." So I try not to tell them, and it was just
No, you
like
tell them what you do
gasoline
like.
and cough syrup. Oh, it was terrible. And Nick got some weird one last year. I was like, I'm not even gonna try one this year. I can't risk it like that. I'm not a big shot girl in general. I can't.
Awesome.
It's like they put like 151 rum in there. It's
Goo.
That'll put hair on your chest.
I thought that stuff was discontinued.
No, God, no. Let's make it a comeback, please. But yeah, something like that, like in a sense of it doesn't have to be like the mystery shot thing, but doing something different with a food booth, whether it's like a challengey thing or
Like interactive.
Something a little bit funkier. I'd be down for. So that's
Really cool.
I think all we got. Is there any other? I mean, we've been here for an hour and a half talking about wish list items, so I don't know if there's anything more to be wished at this point. But I'm really hoping some of this comes to fruition because this would just make for an amazing event. Obviously, not all of this or even any of it will happen, but I'd be excited to see if they do listen to the feedback of people, whether they put these in surveys or have just talked about it online enough to maybe, I don't want to say force the hand of Universal, but at least show that there's interest in these different things that we could do to make this event the best that it possibly could be. So before we sign off, Xandra, again, why don't you plug your social so everyone knows where to find you, give her a follow, and stay up to date because, like she said, she's moving back to Orlando soon, so you're going to be flooding the timeline with content.
Yes, Xandra is coming back to Orlando. I'm taking over. I currently am just on Instagram. Follow me at xandra.ventures on Instagram. But I am going to expand soon to other social media platforms once I'm like officially back. So I'm going to be covering Epic, HHN, and any other upcoming event in Orlando. I'm not going to miss a thing this year. So it's going to be a good year, guys.
No, I'm excited. It's exciting to have you back in town.
Yeah.
I'm really glad we morphed this online following to a friendship to now jumping on the pod with us. So I'm excited, really excited for this season because I feel like every year we sort of meet new people every year and it's just an ever growing community and it's just it's fun. It's like going back to school. Get to see all your friends.
Something I love about HHN, it does feel like going back to school when you're a kid. Like it's that time of year that everyone just kind of like reconvenes and you catch up with old friends, you reconnect with people, you make new friends. As an adult, that's not always easy to do, especially when you're in your 30s and like everyone's working from home or kind of settled in their roles, so you don't really get to meet new people. But the HHN community is so strong, and that's something I really love about it. So I cannot wait to be there this year and see what new opportunities and friends it brings.
Yeah. No, very exciting. We will not have a Shutter Sunday this weekend because, well, there's 5 Sundays in March, and we really didn't want to cram 5 movies in. So on March 1st, tomorrow, check it out because we'll be dropping what we're going to be covering for the month of March other than that first one. And this month is all Jamie's picks. She's picked out a couple winners and maybe one that's just so bizarre I can't wait to dive into, but that will be dropped. That'll be dropped on the 1st of the month, so on Saturday. So be sure to check that out. Xandra, we sign off this always the same. I'm sure you know what to do at this point. Very simply. I'm not even going to explain it. I'm going to throw you to the wolves and see if you know what we're doing here.
Oh my God, guys, I'm totally blinking right now.
Well, you'll pick up. I think you'll pick up.
Yeah, I think you'll pick it up pretty quickly.
Okay.
All right. Well, until next time. Until next time. This is Nick.
This is Seamus.
This is Jamie.
This is Xandra.
There we go. Happy Hans.
Bum, 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 bum.
And thank you for listening to another episode of Fear and Beer, a Halloween Horror Nights podcast. If you like what you heard, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on whatever streaming platform you are listening to us on. You can find us on all of our socials at Fear and Beer Pod.